The girl who stole fire from the core of a dying galaxy. The galaxy was dying. Not in a sudden burst or a cataclysmic explosion, but in silence, slow, graceful, and inevitable. Stars dimmed one by one, their light fading like candles in a room that no longer needed warmth. Nebulas lost their colors, drifting like ghosts of forgotten dreams. The planets, once alive with music and breath, had gone quiet. In the middle of that silence lived a girl named Lyra. Lyra was not born from a planet or a star. She was a child of the Starlit Forge, a floating city built on the remains of an ancient sun. The forge had once been a beacon for wanderers, scientists, and dreamers who studied the last fires of the universe. But now only a few remained, those who could not leave, or who refused to abandon hope. Lyra's mother, Aelra, was a scientist. Her father had vanished long ago, swallowed by the collapsing storms near the galaxy's edge. Aelra often told Lyra stories about the first fires, when the universe was young and full of promise, when stars were born every second and galaxies sang to each other across space. But Lyra had never seen that kind of light. She had grown up under a fading sky, where stars flickered like dying embers. And though she was young, she could feel the weight of a truth that everyone whispered but never said aloud. Their galaxy was reaching its end. One night, while the Starlit Forge floated through the darkness between suns, Lyra climbed to the highest observation deck. She watched the stars that were still alive, far in the distance, burning faintly like distant memories. And in the middle of that void, she saw something strange, a pulse. It came from the center of the galaxy, a single, rhythmic flash of red and gold. It was faint, but alive, as if a heart was still beating deep inside the corpse of their world. Lyra ran to her mother's lab, her small boots echoing on the cold metal floor. "Mother," she called out, "there's still fire in the core." Aelra looked up from her instruments, tired eyes glimmering. "Fire? No, Lyra. What you see are gravitational echoes. The core's been dead for 1,000,000 years." Lyra shook her head. "No, it's real. I saw it. It was alive." Aelra smiled softly and brushed her daughter's hair aside. "You always see life where others see endings. But sometimes, my star, even light can lie." Yet that night, as Lyra lay awake, she couldn't shake the feeling that the core was calling to her. She felt it, a faint hum beneath her bones, a whisper threading through her dreams. Days passed. The forge's reactors were weakening. Power had to be rationed. People spoke of leaving for other galaxies, but few ships remained that could make the journey. Lyra watched as the lights in the corridors dimmed, one by one, until only the emergency lamps remained. One morning, Lyra went exploring through the forgotten sections of the forge, places her mother forbade her to go. The corridors there were dark, filled with dust and drifting cables. She followed the sound of a faint hum, the same sound she had felt in her dreams. At the end of a long tunnel, she found a sealed door covered in rust and warning signs. On it were carved 3 words: "Helios Project, do not enter." Curiosity burned brighter than fear. Lyra pressed her palm to the old scanner. It flickered once, then to her surprise, the door hissed open. Inside, she found a vast chamber filled with machinery that pulsed with faint, golden light. At its center floated a sphere of living fire, small but radiant. It swirled and moved as though aware of her presence. Lyra stepped closer, mesmerized. The light inside the sphere danced like it recognized her. "Who are you?" she whispered. The fire responded, not with words, but with warmth. A voice bloomed inside her mind, soft and ancient. "I am the heart that remains." Lyra gasped. "You're the fire from the core." "Once," said the voice. "Now I am only a fragment, the last ember of what was. But even a dying fire can burn again if someone dares to carry it." Lyra's heartbeat quickened. "I can carry it. I'll take you back to the stars." The fire pulsed gently. "Child of the forge, the journey is perilous. To carry me is to burn. But if you truly wish to steal fire from the dying core, You must choose. Will you let the galaxy fade, or let yourself become its light? Lyra looked into the glowing sphere. She thought of her mother, the fading stars, the stories of creation. Then she whispered, I choose the light. The fire flared, bright and fierce, and leapt into her chest. She cried out as heat flooded through her veins, not of pain, but power. Her eyes turned gold. The lights in the chamber roared to life for the first time in centuries. When the hum finally softened, Lyra fell to her knees, gasping. The fire had merged with her, a tiny sun living inside her heart. And for the first time in thousands of years, the Starlit Forge shone again. But light, once born, cannot hide for long. The surviving fleets across the galaxy saw the sudden burst from the forge. Old satellites reactivated. Signals spread. Across the dark expanse, ships turned their course, drawn to the impossible light. And in the heart of that reborn glow, Lyra stood before her mother, trembling. Lyra, what have you done? Aelra whispered, eyes wide in awe and fear. I stole fire, Lyra said softly, from the core that was dying. Aelra fell silent, tears shining in her eyes. Then you've done what no one dared to dream. You've awakened the galaxy's heart. The fire inside Lyra changed everything. The Starlit Forge, once a cold husk drifting through darkness, now glowed with soft, golden light. Energy returned to the reactors. Dormant gardens bloomed again. The last survivors of the forge stepped out of their dim chambers and lifted their faces in wonder. For the first time in their lives, they felt warmth without machines. Lyra watched them from the upper decks, her heart glowing faintly beneath her chest. Every beat of her heart sent waves of light through the metal floor. The fire she carried wasn't just heat, it was life. Her mother, Aelra, studied her endlessly, torn between pride and fear. You've done something beautiful, she whispered one evening, watching the reactors surge back to life. But beauty can be dangerous, Lyra. If the others learn of this, they will come. Lyra looked at her mother, eyes glowing like twin stars. Let them come. The fire belongs to the galaxy, not to me. Aelra shook her head. There are those who would drain that fire to control it, to rule what's left of the stars. Lyra didn't fully understand then, but she soon would. Across the void, the burst of light from the forge did not go unnoticed. In the shadows of the dying galaxy drifted an ancient fleet known as the Eclipse Legion, survivors of worlds long consumed by darkness. They worshipped the void, believing that the end of light was destiny. To them, the last fires of the stars were enemies to be extinguished. At the helm of their flagship stood Commander Vera, a woman whose armor shimmered like night itself. Her eyes were cold and empty, reflecting no stars at all. When her sensors caught the sudden flare from the forge, she turned to her officers and said, "The light has returned. Someone has broken the silence. Prepare the fleet. We will reclaim the galaxy's heart and crush the fire before it spreads." The Legion's ships shifted course, cutting through the dark like blades. Meanwhile, Lyra's fire was growing stronger. Every night, she dreamed of burning suns and swirling galaxies, memories that weren't her own. She could see the birth of stars, the dance of light and dust, the gentle hum of cosmic creation. The fire whispered to her in those dreams. The galaxy was born from flame, it said. And through you, it may be born again. But it also warned her. Fire must move. If it stays too long in one place, it consumes what it loves. Lyra woke from those dreams trembling, her room shimmering with golden light. Aelra stood in the doorway, shielding her eyes. "You're burning too bright," she said softly. Lyra touched her chest. "It's hard to control. It feels alive, like it's trying to find something." Her mother placed a hand on her shoulder. "Then perhaps it wants to return home, to the core that birthed it. Maybe that's the key to saving us all." Lyra looked out the window at the faint, dying spiral of the galaxy's center. It looked so far away, like a dream that was already fading. "I'll take it there," she whispered. Aelra's face went pale. "No. The core is chaos now, black holes, collapsing stars, storms of gravity. You wouldn't survive it. Lyra smiled faintly. I wasn't meant to survive. I was meant to carry the fire. The next day, she prepared a small ship, the Lumen, an old research vessel her father had once used. It was broken in places, but Lyra's touch reignited its engines. The ship responded as though it remembered her bloodline. Before she could leave, her mother stood by the docking gate, eyes full of tears. If you go, Aelra said, I may never see you again. Lyra hugged her tightly. If I succeed, you'll see the stars reborn. That's better than any goodbye. The docking lights flared gold as the Lumen detached from the forge. Lyra looked back one last time. The city floated like a lantern in the dark sea of space. Then she turned her ship toward the galactic core. For days, Lyra traveled through the blackened remains of ancient star systems. Planets shattered like glass. Comets drifted without light. The silence was so deep she could hear her own heartbeat echo through the hull. But then came the storm. At the edge of the abyssal rift, her sensors screamed, gravity spikes, energy distortions, approaching signatures. She looked through the viewport and froze. The Eclipse Legion had found her. Hundreds of dark ships emerged from the void, their lights blood-red. Commander Vera's voice echoed through her ship's comms. Child of light, Vera said coldly. You carry what does not belong to you. Surrender the fire, and your death will be swift. Lyra gripped the controls. The fire doesn't belong to anyone. It's the galaxy's heart, and I'm taking it home. Vera smiled faintly, though Lyra couldn't see it. Then you will die trying. The Legion's ships opened fire. Beams of void energy tore through space, slicing through asteroids. Lyra spun the Lumen, diving between the blasts. The fire inside her pulsed in rhythm with her fear. Use me, the voice whispered. Let me show you how to burn. Lyra hesitated, then raised her hand. The air inside the cockpit shimmered. The fire erupted outward, forming a golden shield around her ship. The enemy blasts hit the shield and disintegrated into harmless sparks. She gasped. It's protecting me. No, the voice said gently. We are protecting each other. Lyra turned the Lumen toward the nearest cruiser and released a beam of pure light. The darkness split apart like water. The cruiser exploded into a burst of gold dust, drifting silently into space. The Legion hesitated. For the first time in centuries, the void had seen defeat. Vera clenched her fists. So be it, she whispered. If she wants to carry fire, let her burn for it. Her ships retreated into the shadows, regrouping for another strike. Lyra, shaking and pale, leaned back in her seat. Her skin glowed faintly, her veins shimmered with molten light. She could feel the fire consuming her slowly, taking her strength in exchange for power. Is this the price? She asked aloud. The voice inside her softened. Every star must give itself to light the sky. Lyra smiled weakly. Then I'll shine until there's nothing left. Behind her, the Starlit Forge watched the distant battle through ancient telescopes. Aelra stood silently, her hands trembling as she saw her daughter's light flicker across the horizon. She's reaching for the heart, whispered one of the scientists beside her. Aelra nodded. No, she is the heart now. And far ahead, Lyra's ship entered the final stretch, the path to the core of the dying galaxy, where gravity bent light and time itself began to unravel. The galaxy's heart was not what Lyra imagined. She had thought it would be bright, a storm of light and flame. But as the Lumen entered the central region, all light vanished. Stars here had died long ago, leaving behind only the quiet swirl of black holes, drifting ash, and the faint echoes of creation. The ship's sensors began to fail. The stars outside twisted and stretched, like reflections on dark water. Lyra felt as if she were falling, even though her ship was still. Inside her chest, the fire flickered uneasily. This is where I was born, it whispered. But I do not recognize it anymore. It is empty. Lyra tightened her hands around the controls. Then we'll fill it again. She guided the Lumen deeper, following the pulse she had seen from the forge. the same golden rhythm that had called to her across the stars. But the closer she flew, the more unstable the space around her became. The ship trembled as gravity waves rolled through it like invisible storms. Her vision blurred. She could hear whispers, faint, ancient voices in the dark. You are not meant to be here. Return to the light you carry. The core devours all who enter. Lyra shut her eyes and whispered, I don't believe you. She pushed forward. Then suddenly she saw it. A great wound in space, a sphere of collapsing light, spinning slowly at the galaxy's center. Around it drifted the remains of entire solar systems, pulled apart and glowing faintly in the dark. At its heart burned a single spark, small, weak, but alive. Lyra gasped. That's you, isn't it? The rest of your fire. The voice inside her trembled with emotion.
Yes.
That is the first flame, the seed that lit all stars. It still breathes, but barely. Lyra felt tears rise to her eyes. Then let me return you. Let me give it back. No, the fire whispered. If you give me back, you will vanish. The fire cannot exist in two hearts, only one. To rekindle the galaxy, I must burn entirely through you. Lyra's breath caught. If that's what it takes. Before the fire could protest, she pressed her hand to the ship's console. The panels glowed gold, and streams of light burst from her chest, connecting her to the dying core. The lumen shook violently. Warnings flashed red across every screen. But Lyra didn't stop. As her light touched the core, a flood of visions poured into her mind. She saw the birth of the first suns, the great explosion of creation, when the universe had sung with color. She saw ancient civilizations rise and fall, worlds of crystal, oceans of gas, and cities that floated between stars. Then she saw their endings, black holes swallowing whole constellations, stars tearing themselves apart in grief, galaxies falling into silence. Lyra's body burned, but she didn't let go. This isn't the end, she whispered. Nothing ends as long as we remember what it means to live. Her words echoed through the void. The fire within her heart responded, flaring brighter than ever before. The lumen began to break apart, its metal skin peeling away like petals of a dying flower. But inside, Lyra's light only grew. At that moment, the Eclipse Legion arrived. Their dark fleet emerged from the shadows, drawn by the massive energy surge. Commander Vera stared at the growing sphere of light with cold fury. She's trying to reignite the core, one of her officers said. Vera's voice was ice. Then we'll stop her. Fire has no place in the Age of Void. Her ships formed a ring around the dying heart. They fired together, beams of darkness cutting across the void. But before their blasts could reach the center, the light expanded, and Lyra appeared outside her ship, floating in space, surrounded by a golden aura. Her hair flowed like fire. Her eyes glowed like twin suns. Every heartbeat sent waves of warmth across the battlefield. The Legion's weapons faltered. Their beams dissolved in her light. Stop, Lyra said softly, though her voice echoed across space. The galaxy is dying. You would kill what little remains. Vera appeared on the main screen, her face pale and furious. The void is peace. Fire brings chaos, war, and pain. We exist to silence it. Lyra shook her head. You don't understand. Fire isn't destruction, it's rebirth. She lifted her hands, and from them burst a wave of golden light that swept through the fleet. Ships that had known only darkness for centuries suddenly shimmered with color. Their cold metal glowed, as though remembering warmth for the first time. Some soldiers fell to their knees, weeping. Commander Vera shielded her eyes, growling. What are you doing? Lyra's voice grew quiet, almost kind. I'm giving back what was lost, the will to begin again. Vera screamed and launched her flagship straight at Lyra. But before the ship could strike, Lyra raised her hand. The fire inside her chest blazed out in full, a sun reborn. The flagship stopped mid-flight, frozen in the brightness. Lyra floated forward and touched its hull gently. Rest, she whispered. and the ship dissolved into light. The explosion spread through the void, not as destruction, but as creation. The dying core began to glow. The golden spark at its center pulsed once, twice, and then erupted into a storm of color and sound. New stars ignited. Nebulas bloomed like flowers. The darkness that had smothered the galaxy was burned away by the light Lyra had given. Aelra, watching from the distant forge, fell to her knees in tears as the sky outside her window came alive. "She did it," she whispered. She gave the galaxy back its heart. But in the middle of that creation, Lyra began to fade. The fire had taken everything. Her body was turning to light, her voice barely a whisper. "Is this the end?" she asked softly. The fire's voice surrounded her, gentle now, like a lullaby. "No, Lyra. You are the beginning." She smiled faintly. "Then let me see it." And she did one last time. She saw 1,000 newborn suns lighting up the void. She saw the forge basking in golden warmth. She saw life stirring again across dead planets. Then she closed her eyes, and her body became a star. In the centuries that followed, travelers spoke of a golden sun at the center of the galaxy, a living light that pulsed like a heartbeat. They called it Lyra's star, and said that its fire never dimmed, no matter how dark the universe became. And whenever someone lost hope, they looked up at that glowing heart and remembered. Once, there was a girl who stole fire from the core of a dying galaxy and taught the stars to breathe again. The galaxy that had once been dying was alive again. New stars burned bright across the dark arms of the spiral, coloring the void with hues of gold, blue, and crimson. New planets formed in the warmth of those suns, and on them, life began once more, quietly, patiently, beautifully. No one alive remembered the silence of the old age. But every being who looked up at the night sky could see one thing, a single, golden star at the very center of the galaxy. They called it Lyra's heart. In the city of Astrion, built on one of the new worlds, children gathered every evening to watch the sky turn silver. Their teachers would tell them stories of the girl who stole fire, a girl from the ancient times who defied the dark to bring warmth back to all creation. She was not a queen or a warrior, the elders would say. She was just a girl who believed that endings were only beginnings waiting to be lit. And when the children asked, "Where is she now?" the elders would point to the glowing heart of the galaxy and whisper, "She became the fire itself." On the Starlit Forge, which had survived through the centuries, Aelra's name had become a legend too. The city had been rebuilt, now orbiting close to Lyra's star, a living monument to the one who saved them all. Deep within its archives rested a single recording, preserved across ages. It was Lyra's voice, soft, filled with wonder. "If ever you find yourself in the dark, don't be afraid. Fire is born from those who refuse to let go. You don't have to be powerful, just willing to care." Visitors who came from far galaxies would listen to that message and fall silent. Some left flowers at the viewing deck. Others left letters written in light, tiny data crystals floating like fireflies. Each one carried a message of thanks. But not all who remembered Lyra saw her only as a story. Some scientists believed that Lyra's consciousness still lived inside the heart of the star, that she had become the sentient flame guiding the rebirth of the galaxy. There were moments when ships passing near the core reported strange signals, gentle, musical pulses hidden in the radio waves. When decoded, they formed words. Simple, familiar words. "Keep the light alive." Those who heard them never forgot. 1,000 years after her sacrifice, a young explorer named Aelra stood on the edge of her ship, staring at Lyra's star. She had grown up hearing the story of the girl who carried the heart of a galaxy inside her chest. Aelra was different from the others. She was born curious, restless, always searching for more. And deep down, she wondered, was Lyra truly gone? So one night, guided by that curiosity, she flew her small ship close to the glowing core. The light was blinding, yet gentle. It felt like warmth spreading through her veins. As her ship drifted near the golden radiance, Aelra whispered into the comms, If you're still there, thank you. For a long moment, there was only silence. Then, faintly, she heard a soft hum, like a heartbeat answering her call. The lights of her ship flickered in golden rhythm, and a voice, distant, tender, filled her mind. The light never ends, Elin. It only changes hands. Elin gasped, tears streaming down her face. Lyra? The voice faded like a whisper through wind. Keep it burning. The galaxy will need you one day. And then the hum faded. Elin looked out at the blazing heart one last time, whispering, I promise. Years later, when Elin became a great explorer known across countless systems, she told her crew that the galaxy's light was alive, and that within every spark, every fire, every sunrise, Lyra's soul still breathed. She said that whenever a star was born, you could hear a faint melody echoing through the cosmos, the same rhythm as a human heartbeat. And so, across all the worlds, people began a tradition. Every year, on the day when Lyra's star burns brightest, they light small lanterns and release them into the sky. They call it the Festival of Rebirth, a celebration of courage, warmth, and hope. Children hold the lanterns close to their hearts before letting them go, whispering the ancient words, for the girl who carried the fire, and for all who will carry it again. As time stretched beyond memory, galaxies drifted, civilizations rose and fell, and still, in the very center of all creation, Lyra's light burned on. Some said it was the galaxy's heart. Others said it was a miracle. But the oldest souls knew the truth. It was a promise made by a girl who once stole fire from the core of a dying galaxy and gave it back to the stars. And through that promise, the universe learned to breathe again.